This is Wondrous Creatures, and yes, it is pretty much Temu Pokemon, or Temumon. Is it Poketemu? Doesn't matter, because when I say Temu, you have to understand, I say it only with affection for Wondrous Creatures, not Temu. Some of you might be asking, what does a Pokemon board game even look like? Well, I'm sure that most people watching have at least heard the name Wingspan. Wondrous Creatures is kinda like Wingspan, or For a Shuffle, or SETI, or Arknova, or Everdell, or the other one that I'm not gonna mention, because they chose evil. Unrelated clip. So, believe it or not, the premise of Wondrous Creatures is that you will collect cards, each of which is a fantastical amalgamated creature with a unique ability, and then you will play those cards into your personal collection onto the table. Yes, this game is basically Pokemon. Instead of a Charizard, you get a Lilizard. You can't hang out with Geodude, but you can look after an Applet. And Applet looks like it does need a lot of looking after. That could be your job. There is a fine line between inspired by and ripoff, and I couldn't be happier to report that 1, it's not a ripoff. 2, it's not a ripoff. 3, don't you even think about talking to those lawyers, Nintendo, because these are creatures lovingly crafted, legally distinct creations dreamt up by human minds. And you know what? They're very effective. If you're not familiar with any of the games I mentioned above, here's a quick summary. You collect cards and you play them for various effects. The more cards you can play into your collection, the more they build a sort of engine via visual tags, persistent abilities, and so on. These effects will either aid you in collecting resources so you can play more cards, or eventually translate into victory points, which you will need to have the most to win the game. But all you really need to know is that this genre is personally responsible for getting so many people into board games. Wingspan is popular enough to appear on Coronation Street. That still gets me. And other games like Arknova, SETI, and the evil one constantly top BGG's top 100. It just gets its hooks into you because every play feels like a Moorish taster of an avalanche of possibilities. And you want to know what this genre is called? Well, me too. I want to know what this genre is called. It doesn't have a name. What separates it from other styles of board games is that there's like 100+ unique cards with a gobsmacking amount of different effects. It is then your job to find cool combos as you play cards into your tableau. People who like board games erroneously refer to this genre as tableau builders, but that doesn't work because there are tableau builders with 0 cards. And I'd argue that it is the high volume of cards that is the core defining feature. So like cardcore? Naming a genre is hard. My friend suggested card salad, but that's pejorative. Hundreds of cards sounds flat. Cardcore sounds cringe and stupid. Card-based tableau builder is way too long and makes you sound like you do accounting as a hobby rather than a job. But you know what? I think I can make it worse. Because as bad as card-based tableau builder sounds, I can degrade it further by making it into an acronym. So say hello to CBTBs. Except card-based tableau builder is still not quite correct because there are tableau builders with cards that don't have a lot of them and they do feel quite different. So how do we add big volume to that title? Folks, I'm so proud of this. I even made a little revelation display. So not gonna waste more of your time. Please welcome to the world the name Turbo CBTB. I will refer to this genre Turbo CBTB from now on, and there is nothing you can do to stop me. In fact, I am hoping for the opposite. I am hoping you join me, and together we can make Turbo CBTB a thing, because it is so opaque, completely impenetrable. You say to people Turbo CBTB, they will have no idea what you mean, and they'll be like, what the heck's Turbo CBTB? And you go, it's Turbo CBTB. The reason Turbo CBTB is so popular is because Every card is like a personal invitation to explore the game's systems, a boosh of amuse to amuse your boosh, a little taster of what could be if you pushed this lever and then that lever, and before you know it, you're Liberace, crying tears of cards all the way to the bank. Forget the artwork for a second, although we're gonna have to talk about how genuinely amazing some of these dudes and dudettes and do-thems are, but one look at these cards and you already know we're in for a doozy. Ooh, there's symbols here and symbols there and card costs and card effects and different card types. You can just tell this is gonna be a feast of mechanisms. Brown-bordered creatures have one-off instant effects. You play them and just like a Marvel movie, you enjoy it once and then completely forget about it. For example, if I play Finhead, it will let me hatch an egg and then also get a new egg. Most of you have had breakfast at least once in your life, so I don't think I need to explain that having more eggs is good. Purple cards are a little spicier because they come in with some energy. For example, a Gentum comes into play with 2 energy and will let me flip 2 eggs and gain 2 points. Eggs are great for triggering scoring conditions before other players, but I can only use unhatched ones. This will let me unpay the costs for playing Finhead, so already a nice little combo. Blue cards are constant effects. Whenever I do this, I get that, meaning that if I played Finhead or activated Gentom whilst I had a Lunantula in play, each time I flipped those eggs, I would have got extra points. Something very effective. And finally, red cards are point scorers. They're things you're setting your big strategies around. If my strategies revolved around egg collection, well, hello, egg gorgeous! Did you say an extra victory point for every egg I have? Let's crack this bad boy open. There's one final card type I'm not going to talk about just yet because it's not going to make any sense. Orange cards are intrinsically tied to all the other mechanisms that don't directly relate to cards, which brings us to magnets! Okay, so Turbo CBTBs by default are incredibly insular experiences. You play things to your own tableaus and trigger your own combos, and wow, that combo is so dope, you won't believe what happens when I play my Sugar Rider into a Viking. Massive value, right? I don't know about the size of that value, but there's definitely going to be some massive crickets going on because literally nobody cares. They are too busy with their own combos. The way Turbo CBTBs get around that is by either being short or introducing a board where people can interact. Enter your crew. You have exactly 3 of them, and one of them has a cool magnet for your cool captain. These are very much workers that you will place to not so much perform actions, but to gather resources, blocking spaces for other players. For example, if I place a crew member on these spots, I can gather 2 coral and 1 fruit, which I can later use to play a Perfume. At this point, you might be asking, but how do I get the Perfume card to begin with? Instead of gathering a resource when you place your crew member, you can also collect a card from a display of 6, as long as that card belongs to a habitat that matches the resource icon. In other words, instead of taking a resource, I could take a card. And this is an ingenious bit of design because it ties multiple competing desires into one system. To play a card is a separate action that does not require crew placement, although on your turn you can only do one or the other. And also, when you play a card, you can play 2 of them at the same time. Turbo CBTBs are a race. You're trying to be more efficient with your card plays than your opponents, and you're trying to make sure that you will find and have enough resources to pay for every ingredient in the recipe for your grand strategy before someone triggers endgame. Which means gathering resources is a big priority. You want to play 2 cards in one go, and that can get very expensive. But if the perfect card is revealed into the display, you might have to delay those plans. And if you are delaying, the profitable spots on the board might disappear as other players gobble them up. And if that wasn't enough, there's the whole catching eggs or other goodies with nets mechanism, which I'm not going to get into because that's too in the weeds. but it does make the board more dynamic as the value of spaces becomes more or less profitable. And also, you will say things like, I'm gonna catch this egg with a net, and someone else will say, how does Annette feel about that? And then you realize you're gonna have to deal with that joke for the next 3 hours. Okay, so what's the deal with the Magnet Captain? Well, they are your special worker. Once you score on at least one of the game's scoring criteria, for example, collecting enough Dragon-type Pokemon, you unlock a unique ability every time you place the Captain. A Captain might make Pokemon cheaper, let you play extra cards, or even nab you a tasty egg. Probably shouldn't eat these eggs because I think they're meant to be like how these Pokemon are born. So if you eat one, you're eating the Pokemon. If each time I place a Captain, I trigger an ability, that means I want to place them all the time for maximum value, right? So how do we get them back? Well, another thing you can do on your turn, once all 3 of your crew are placed, is return them, which triggers, that's right, every orange card you have played into your collection, which is the final layer of a fairly complex system of delightful strategic confluences, each element tightly woven into a cornucopia of considerations. Considerations like, I didn't play any orange cards into my tableau, and now I'm getting punished. In other words, this game is ADHD bait. There's a myriad of competing, all complementing effects hovering around you, but in a state of flow, you can pluck at those imaginary strings to compose a symphony of triggers, and it feels oh so rewarding. It's also got a shockingly good rulebook with every card effect clarified in case you have questions. And I don't know how to make this not sound like the blandest praise ever, but it's just a very tight game. Mechanically, everything complements itself and feels competent. The designer knew what they were doing, understood the pitfalls of Turbo CBTB, and answered those problems with logical, efficient, and fluid mechanisms. Despite its cutesy artwork, the game rests at the edge of tension. Every turn feels like a trade-off or a compromise. You're never quite satisfied because you couldn't achieve everything you wanted, which naturally makes you yearn for more turns, and that is just a great feeling. But I would also be lying if I said that it doesn't feel slightly too typical of a Turbo CBTB game. Mechanically, there is nothing here that feels innovative. These are things we've seen and done cleaner than before, but a rough edge is sometimes more exciting than something processed. In fact, when it comes to critiquing Wondrous Creatures, I can literally pull into a grab bag of criticisms from previous Turbo CBTB entries, and all of them apply. This one says, plays too long with 4 players. Yep, let's see another one. Despite board, still feels not interactive enough. This one says, too many card effects dominate your play area. I can literally keep going all day. Here's a little truth about board game criticism that sometimes goes unsaid. As much as we reviewers like to dig and analyze why a design is good versus bad, sometimes, rarely, but still sometimes, it does just come down to this game, to me, feels right based entirely on my personality and taste. If you're not a fan of Turbo CBTB, there is not much that Wondrous Creatures is doing mechanically that should sway you the other way. And if you've watched our reviews before, you will know I don't much like these games myself. I don't like Arc Nova or Wingspan or The Evil One. I was lukewarm on SETI. I have no inclination to play Everdell, but I do think Forest Shuffle is a delight, and I have all the time in the world for Daybreak. And yet, something about Wondrous Creatures feels just right. The vibes are good. The mechanisms just make sense. I am picking up what the design is putting down. I completely recognize that from a reviewer standpoint, this is irrational. A 4-player game is like 3 hours of people staring at their own carved out corner of the table, occasionally getting in each other's way. I should not enjoy this. But I do. Why? I haven't got a good explanation,
but I do have a weird one.
I know I jokingly call this game Temu Pokemon, but this completely undermines what is, frankly, an astonishing amount of creativity. Sophia Kang illustrated 126 unique, fantastical beings. Some of them are just, here's a stag beetle but crystals, but for every one of those there's a creepy snail with a single wide open eyeball, and I just need more of that in my life. Pokemon is a huge franchise with an identity that is hard to compete with, but I posit that the Wondrous Creatures of Wondrous Creatures, as bland as that title is, are just as inspired and kooky and whimsical as whatever the heck Squirtle was. Look at Globion, or Bear Armor, or Night Thief. These have every right to be as iconic as a rubber duck with a headache. Listen, I'm under no illusion that this will ever have the cultural significance that Pokemon does. First of all, it's a derivative, and far from the first one. So when I say this game is better than Pokemon, I'm not here to topple a franchise. I still have all my wits, some of them. I'm here to tell people this is way better than it might first seem. Let's think back to what Pokemon means to people, which is mainly three things: the Game Boy games, the collectible card game, and the cartoon with a protagonist whose last name is nearly Ketchup. And what the legacy of these things is. The cartoon by now is just nostalgia, which is fine, but I don't think it's culturally relevant anymore. The collectible card game has become a breeding ground for commodity speculators to capitalize on that nostalgia to exploit a volatile market. It's just bad vibes all around. As for video games, look, I don't want to diss them because I think they used to be charming, but they haven't really advanced mechanically with time. And I think their appeal used to be that they were social. A big part of the hook of playing Pokemon Red and Blue was aspirational. You could find rare Pokemon and trade them with your friends at school. The game was inherently aiming to be a more communal than a solitary video game experience. Well, I am here to ask you, what other side of gaming represents communal play space better than board games? This is a self-contained pay-once package that lets you collect weird animals, and most importantly, you can do it together with friends.
And again, I know that our little old video can't really take a swing at the behemoth that is TCGs, but my word, take it from someone who kicked that habit. It is so refreshing to play self-contained games, and not just because with TCGs you are buying packs filled with junk cards or paying money to speculators, but because most cards in TCGs are purposefully designed to be thrown away. In Wondrous Creatures, every card means something. It has room to exist, and more importantly, the only rarity that matters is the rarity you create. And what I mean by that is that a card's importance isn't determined by its role in the artificial scarcity machine, it's determined by what it means to you when you play the game. This card gives me points for eggs. I already have all the eggs. I need this right now. More importantly, Wondrous Creatures is just a good pitch, as in it's easy to get others excited by it. If I go into a local board game gathering and yell out, "Who wants to play a strategy game with 100+ cards where you play Temu Pokemon?" I can guarantee you a full table of excited people, and it is precisely because I said Temu. I think that is ultimately more interesting than just Pokemon, because it doesn't come with baggage, but it's also a promise of something new.
And you know what the previous default game of Turbo CBTV was? A game where the designers insisted on cards with stock footage, and now they just pivoted to full AI. Unrelated clip.
Hey baby, check out my score track. It goes from 0 to 100 in about 3 hours or so.
That's not creativity. That's just boring to people. If I tried to pitch that at game night, I'd be laughed out of the room. No one wants to play that. No one is going to be excited by a game that conceptually has the same dream as Elon Musk, with the cringiest artwork made by people with some accusations of bigotry. One of the most frequent comments we get goes something like, I want to play board games, but I don't have friends. On a last video, someone commented just the words, I have no friends. I mean, no more context needed. I get it, buddy. We live in a disconnected world where socializing in person is harder than it's ever been. Board games make it easy to bridge social gaps and find new friends, and the best board games to do that are easy pitches. I cannot overstate the importance of this. Wondrous Creatures is a feast of human creativity that you can bond over with other people. That alone is the game's crowning achievement, but it also belongs to a more genre that will make your friends come back for more and more, and also it is a direct replacement for a popular problematic Turbo CBTB entry, and then it delivers on the nostalgia of a pop culture icon. Wondrous Creatures is a slam dunk. Bring it to your game night, people will love it. That's all I need to say. Hey, you're still here. That's really sweet. Thank you for watching till the end. One more quick thing. Like everyone else, we have a Patreon. But what you need to know is that unlike most media entities in the board game space, we are entirely independent. We don't take review copies. We don't accept sponsorships from board game publishers. And if you would like to support that kind of work, well, it's not easy to have all of that going. So please do check out our Patreon if you can. The link is in the description. See you soon.